Okay, I am here with a 2015 Unity Murphy bed, right?
Yes.
Murphy bed?
Yes.
And my friend Howard stopped by. He's been on a 17-week trip and he's had a couple of little electrical glitches. So we're going to look into all that. And he currently has a Misc lithium battery, a 200 amp single battery. But somebody gave me these Dragonfly batteries, and I'm switching his Misc battery out with these Dragonfly batteries because I think they might perform better, and they have a heater, a battery heater, and he does cold weather camp, so he's gonna like having a battery heater. So anyway, I already put a magnet here to pull the step in, and his battery box is a little bit different than most because the older models, 2015 and older, they have a battery lid instead of a sideways box. And you can see his Misc battery in there. And so we're gonna take all this out and see what we've got and figure out what we need to do to straighten things out and put the Dragonfly batteries in. Alright, so we're gonna start unhooking this. Now this thing right here, this fuse holder, this is his solar, and we're not gonna unhook it, so we're gonna work on he doesn't have a disconnect switch, so we're just gonna work on this thing hot. And you have an extra battery charger hooked up, or a connection, so you can hook up a battery charger easily. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
That was your recommendation.
Yeah. I'm not sure what size. Now this Misc battery, it's actually done pretty good for you for the past 17 weeks, right?
Yeah, it has.
I mean, the issue you've had hasn't really been around the battery.
Well, not being an electrician or knowing anything about that, I don't know what happened there in Cortez, Colorado, but we lost total power to our house. And it was probably because we boondocked 2 nights, and we had making coffee in the morning with a 1,000-watt coffee maker and only a 650-watt inverter. We probably took that battery down to probably
Oh yeah.
low enough that it actually shut down after 2 nights of doing that.
Right. Yeah.
So it took us to plug into a business on the outside into an outlet for it to actually
begin recharging. Yeah, because it was so low.
Yeah, it rebooted the system, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
And we got power back.
Yeah, that's what happens when any of these kind of they don't have any internal like Bluetooth or nothing to deal, no switches, nothing to deal with. They just turn off, and then if you've really discharged them, you actually have to start recharging them slowly to get them to wake up, and then they'll take a charge again.
We actually lost power while we were in the middle of Mesa Verde National Park. It didn't lose power in the morning. It was actually while we were driving around in Mesa Verde.
Huh.
Which was strange because we then drove out of Mesa Verde without power in the house part. Went all the way back into town, which was about 10 miles. And then plugged in. And then it reset the system.
Huh. Okay, now I treat, as I said before, he doesn't have a disconnect for his solar controller, but it's probably not producing that much power. But regardless, I treat every hot wire hot, as if it is hot. And in this case, you know, it probably is, because I'm not disconnecting the solar. So I'm going to put these little protector caps that I have on these connections, just to make sure I don't have any risk of these touching anything.
When the sun comes up, would you be able to turn on and tell if there's how much the panel is producing?
The battery the panels only produce as much as the battery needs. So if the battery is pretty much fully charged, then you're not really going to see what their full potential is. The only way to test truly test batteries is to boy, this is weird. This feels wet. And I see what looks like, but that might be from an old battery. Anyway, so the only way to truly know what your panels are doing is if you discharge them enough, you know, like take them down, you know, 25-30%, and then, you know,
Then turn on
yeah, turn on the solar, or the solar can be on. I mean, whatever, just discharge it and then see what the solar does, and that'll tell you what its capability is. What do you have? How many watts do you have up there? 2 panels or 4 panels?
Just one.
Oh, you just have a one, what, the 95 watt?
No,
That,
it's 160, I think.
oh, 160. Okay, so you know, you're probably looking at the most maybe like 8 amps. So if you're not seeing, you know, in that range around 8 amps, then your panels and your solar controller isn't doing its job. So that's what tells you. With 200 watts, you should see about 12 amps. With 400 watts, you should see about 25 amps. So you're going to be just less than. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and disconnect. All right, so now I have all the power disconnected, and I'm going to try to keep these things from touching any metal, but I'm actually going to disconnect this so I can see how we're going. This is the main coach cable, power cable. So I'm going to disconnect it so I can see what we've got to do for the Dragonfly batteries, and I don't want this in the way. In the 2015 and older, Leisure just used a single mega fuse. And that's what this is. This is the mega fuse holder. The mega fuse goes across these 2 terminals. You can't really, you can hardly see it, but it's right there. And so this is the coach. This is where you connect. This side is the battery, and then this side are all the things of the coach that feeds off of the mega fuse, which is, you know, his levelers, the battery switch, generator, I think there's 3 wires. So that's what the 3 feeds are. And you can see right here, this connection isn't correct. See how these lugs should be fanned out like cards. See this gap here? So this lug is under this lug, so therefore it can't lay flat. So this is really a bad connection, because you want all the lug paddles to lay completely and perfectly flat on each other for the best metal-to-metal connections. So that's something you always need to pay attention to. And the other issue we have here is the largest lug is on the outside. It should be the reverse. You want your largest lug against the power producing terminal, and then you want the smaller lugs stacked on top. I call that Christmas tree fashion. So larger lug on the bottom, smaller lugs on the top, and then you put your nut. And this is reverse. He's got these smaller lugs on the bottom, so now you're not getting your largest cable, which I think is the generator. You're not getting that connected. You're not getting that completely, the surface area completely touching the power producing side. So this is probably going to develop heat and add resistance and even voltage drop. So that's another thing we need to fix. Okay, so now I'm going to, these are all the positives that go to the coach on the other side of this mega fuse, but since none of these are connected correctly, I got to remove them anyway. See how little these are? See, this should have been on first, and then whatever's perceived as the next largest, which now this one's bent, and then, you know, this next smaller one, and they need to be fanned out like cards. So we very well may need to change the position of this mega fuse to accommodate the new batteries. All right, so everything's disconnected. Now all we need to do is lift out this Misc battery and see what we're dealing with for the battery box, if we need to, you know, clean anything up or whatever we're going to do to it. And I'll be back when we start the Dragonfly installation. Okay, I am going to remove this mega fuse because I think I'm going to have to turn it vertically instead of horizontal in order to fit the Dragonfly batteries. Or even move it to the back of the battery box, wherever. But bottom line, we'll move this. All right, so now you can see this is a single 200 amp mega fuse holder that Leisure uses in the older models. And I have a 2014, so this is exactly the same thing that I have in, this is the exact same battery box I have in my 2014. Okay, so now we can lift out the Misc battery. And here we are. All right. I'm gonna have to get rid of this. Looks in pretty good condition. This right here is the battery box ground, and that's what this is supposed to be, the ground to his original batteries, even though it's a red wire, so we can fix that and make that look right. But this looks pretty good, and I am going to go ahead and use a Turnabond to cover up all these holes, and we'll clean this battery box out and up so it looks nice. And we'll get it all ready for the Dragonfly batteries. I'll be back. All right, I've disconnected all the negatives because the negatives had the same problem. They had these little teeny negatives against the wall the metal battery box wall, which they should have had this big lug against that. So I've disconnected all these. We've cleaned the battery box up. We've put a turn-on tape over all the holes. And now I'm going to set one of the... Whoa! I was going to set it in, but it fell in. So, I want to put one of these in. Let me get the strap back on. Guess we're going to have to pull it out. Okay. So that's good. Actually, we can put this back against the wall. Okay, so that fits good. And it won't fit this way. It's too long. And so the other one will come, if this is the center, the other one's going to come about right there. So we'll put this mega fuse this way between them. All right, so what I need to do before we drop the second one in is I need to get all my negatives connected and install the mega fuse and get all my wiring where it needs to be before I move on to the second battery, and then wiring the batteries together. So we'll come back when we do that. All right, I've got all the ground bolts hooked up back here. I don't know if you can see this. Here, let me hand this. I've got all the ground bolts all fanned out, which you can't exactly see, but anyway, they're all fanned around that bolt now, so they're all proper. And then I have this mega fuse connected down here. And they're all fanned out, so they're connected properly. All right, so now I have all the coach positives connected to the coach side of the mega fuse. This is the battery side of the mega fuse. And the things that go on the battery side of the mega fuse are the solar, which I did pull the fuse for the solar because I didn't want to worry about getting any shorts. And then I believe this is probably the equalizer. These are the levelers? Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, so see how this casing is down. You can see the nut was actually over this casing. You do not want that. That's a bad connection. You need metal on metal. So anytime you have a long casing like this, you need to cut that off so you can have a nice metal to metal. See? Once the nut goes around here, on this side, which is the battery side of the mega fuse, we're going to be putting these cables, but you can see the nut was over that casing. I mean, you want everything to be nice metal to metal connections. So I did find that on some of the ground bolt wires, so make sure you look at your wires so you have a nice metal to metal. And this solar, I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper so you can see that red. That's where this solar wire was on top of the casing of this, so it wasn't making a good connection. So I'm going to clean both of these up and make a battery cable, because when we put the batteries, the second Dragonfly battery in, we have to wire them in parallel. So that means positive to positive, negative to negative. And then you hook the coach negative to one battery negative and the coach positive to one battery positive. So I'll be connecting a new positive cable, so we have a smaller length to deal with. We're also going to be installing a Victron Smart Shunt on these batteries, and the power for the battery heaters, which connect to these little terminals. So let me get all this mega fuse thing put back together, and we'll come back. All right, so I have all the positive wires back connected together, and as you can see, they're fanned. So they're all able now to lay flat. See how nice and flat they're laying? There's no gaps. It's a lot better than it was. So that's good. And then we'll just put this back over. And okay, so oh, and I also put this, I mounted this vertically, so now it's going to, hopefully when I put the other battery in here, it's going to be between the two batteries. But you know, the proof is in the pudding when we put it back in. So then I want to put all this back on, and this is all pushed back down. This has to fit over like that. Then you gotta get each one of those on the battery terminals. Okay. I might put some zip ties on that to make that nice and flat. Yeah, okay. Now the other thing that we're doing, we're installing a Victron Smart Shunt. And on the Dragonfly batteries, the diameter of the terminal on the Dragonfly battery is 3/8 of an inch, which is the exact diameter of the bolts that are used with the Smart Shunt. So this can actually mount right on to the negative terminal of the battery, and then all of our all the other negatives, like the main coach negative, is connected to this end. And I'm going to have another negative when I hook up the switch for his battery heater, so I'll be sliding that on, but I'm not going to tighten that for now until I see how everything's going to fit. So now we are ready to put in the other Dragonfly battery, and we'll see how it all fits. So I'll be back with that. All right, we got the battery in fine. So our grounds are pushed back on the back wall. Our positives are pushed up here. I did have to move this wire out of the way, but that's actually going to work better because now I can just twist it and connect it to the positive terminal like I need to. So now we have the task of putting the jumpers across the battery. So positive to positive, negative to negative. And then, like I said, the coach positive goes on this positive, and I already have the coach negative on the opposite battery negative. So, and then I've got to hook up I made a little switch for his battery heaters. So that's going to be nice. So we got to hook up those as well. And don't let me forget to put your solar fuse back in. Oh, and I do have to hook up the positive, or the power cable for the shunt. And here's a little, that's the installation guide. I don't think you need that. Okay, so we will get on with that, and we'll come back. Okay, so we got everything connected now. I will just go ahead and do a few zip ties to tidy this up. But I've got the battery heaters. I've got the battery heaters hooked, power for the battery heaters. I made a little switch so we can have it hooked This is just double-sided tape. And when he wants the battery heaters, he just flips it on, and he has a little light so he knows it's on. And so you want to, like I said, you want to turn this on whenever the outside temperature is going to be less than 35. Because you don't want to discharge or charge a lithium battery below freezing. So whenever it's 35 degrees, flip the battery heaters on, and they will use 1 amp per hour, and I'm not sure if it's 1 amp from each battery, if that's 2 amps. You know, I'm not really that familiar with Dragonfly, but bottom line, it's going to use 1 or 2 amps per hour to keep the batteries heated between 35 and 40 degrees. So that means when you're cold weather, and that it will do that down to a temperature of -4, I believe. I know Lithionics is -4, so I don't know what Dragonfly is, but I'm guessing it's got to be fairly similar. So yeah, so I mean, so you can definitely cold weather camp with these batteries, and the battery heaters will keep them at a temperature where you can't damage them while you're camping and using them. Okay, so we have, like I said, we have both batteries connected in parallel, black to black, red to red, and then we have the coach red cable from the mega fuse connected to the red positive terminal on one battery, and then we have the coach negative, which runs under here and connects to the system side of the shunt, which is the opposite negative, the negative from the other battery. So you connect to the negative of one battery and the positive of one battery to make your coach connection. Okay, and we've got a little power cable here for the shunt, and you can't see it. You might be able to see it, but there's a little blue light flashing. That tells you the shunt is working. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go, I've got to go and zip tie. I've got to zip tie this negative cable below this lip so we can make sure this door is going to shut. So I'm just going to go through and zip tie all these cables to pull them flatter. And then this closed fine, so that will be fine. And we will be done with our batteries. And then we're going to move to a battery charging. We're going to replace the converter. In the 2015s and older, there is a thing called a converter and battery charger that's actually in the breaker box. And we're going to replace that thing with a Victron Bluetooth Lithium battery charger. So he will have a good, at least one good lithium battery charger on his coach. And so he'll use that on shore power. And I think eventually he's planning on replacing his 160 amp Go Power panel and Go Power solar controller with a better solar setup, because it's probably really not working after all these years, because the Go Power was never that good in the first place. So anyway, so if he does that, he'll then have he'll go with a Victron Smart solar controller. So then he'll have a second good lithium battery charger and a good solar system, so it'll keep his battery charged that way as well. And right now he has an isolator solenoid under his passenger seat, which basically just joins the batteries, and we're going to check that and make sure that's working. But ultimately that needs to be changed with a DC to DC charger, because lithium batteries can damage the alternator. Because they can pull so many amps, they can pull virtually as much amps as they want to recharge themselves. So that eventually needs to be replaced, but it's not that big of a risk with 200 amp hours of batteries. So he's good with his isolator solenoid until he can get around to replacing that with a DC to DC charger. All right, so I'll zip tie and we'll come back. Okay, so I've got everything zip tied. Lid closes fine now. and we are going to do the Victron Smart Shunt setup. I had forgotten I wanted to put some foam to keep the batteries from moving around, so I've done that. I use pool noodle pieces, and we're done with that.
Okay.
All right, so you called up the Victron Connect app. Is that it?
Hold on.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, so you've already gone,
I've downloaded it.
Oh, you've already gone through your, did you put in your PIN number and all that?
I don't.
Okay,
no.
all right, so hit the Smart Shunt. What is this? Pair, yeah, pair it. Okay, now you have to go through the update. Hit update on the bottom there.
There we go.
Okay, continue. All right, hit that Smart Shunt. Oh, wait. Okay, yeah, hit that again. Hit Smart Shunt again. Okay, now go up to that cog, that little wheel up in the corner. Oh. Change your PIN code. All right, like I said, what do you want? 6 ones or... And do it again. And then say okay. Just say okay. Just hit no, okay, yeah. All right, now hit that little cog up there at the top corner. Yeah. Now you got to do another update. Hit update. Right there. Yeah. Update on the bottom. Oh, enable. Oh, this is instant readout, and you definitely want this, so hit enable now. And hit update. That enable instant readout, what that does is it gives you a little blip of data without actually having to open the app. So when you first open your Victron Connect screen, your Smart Shunt is going to show up, and then that new battery charger that we're going to put in, those will show up with a little bit of data. So that might be good enough. You don't even have to open them up. Okay. It's kind of handy, you know, because you get an at a glance without having to, you know, open each one up. Okay, continue. Yeah, see that little bit of data? Oh, your batteries are at 100%. Okay, hit the Smart Shunt again. No, open it up. Yeah.
Oh, the whole thing there. Okay.
Right. All right, so these batteries are at 100%. And like I said, these came out of a 2021 Unity, so they are fairly new. Hit your little cog up there at the top. Now we'll do the settings. Okay, battery capacity. Yeah, hit set. 200 amp hours, that's okay, okay. And yeah, you can hit, yeah, we're not, just do temperature. Yeah, that's good, okay. All right, now hit battery. Okay, so for the first thing I'm going to say is, since we're already at 100, just hit synchronize. So now that, say okay. So now the shunt is synchronized to the 100% full charge of the battery. And you want to synchronize your batteries every, you know, 2, 3, 4 weeks, you know, once a month, because that keeps the shunt and the batteries, you know, in sync. So, and you only want to do it when you know they're 100%. And the biggest way you know they're 100% is if you have a battery charger on them. The battery charger won't be sending any amps to the battery. because the batteries are telling the battery charger, I'm full, I don't need anything. So you can always look at your battery charger, like the one we're going to install. And if it's not sending, you know, if it's about at 0, even if it's like 0.9, you know, some small number, that's good enough to be 100%.
Okay.
All right, so now we want to go through the settings. So hit the first one, charged voltage, where it says 13, yeah. Okay, we want that to be 13.9. Okay. Then the next one, discharge floor, we want that to be 10%. And what this discharge setting means, discharge floor, means that when your battery, yeah, that's good. When your battery, when you look at your shunt and it says, you know, say you're using like 4 amps, and then it will say time, we'll look at it, but it says something like time to go, or, you know, basically it's telling you how long you can use your batteries at that amperage. Well, that time frame is basically only to 10%. It's not to 100%. That's why we sent the discharge floor. So the time remaining, you know, the time that your batteries have to that you can use them at that constant voltage means it will take the battery to 90%, not to 0. That's why we set the discharge floor at 10%, because that's giving us a buffer.
Right.
So it lets you because you don't want to run your battery to 0. So, but that's what the discharge floor means. It's giving you set it at whatever number you want, but you know, 10% is fine. That gives you, you know, enough warning so you can do something about it. Okay, tail current 2%. Okay. And what's next? That's fine, 3 minutes. That exponent number should be 1, not 1.25. Okay. And then charge efficiency factor should be 99. Current threshold 0.1, that's okay. And 3 minutes, that's okay. Okay, everything's done. All right, so you can go back for the battery setting. All right, now we don't, you know, I don't fool around with setting alarms, you know, because none of that really matters. Now, if you want to get out of settings, oh, no, sorry. If you hit these 3 little dots up in the corner, you can actually custom name your battery if you wanted. So like if you're at a campground where everybody else has smart shunts, you'll be able to know
which one.
the name of yours.
Good idea.
So you can do that right now if you want to. Just hit edit. And just type what do you want? Howard?
Does it have to have a number?
No, it doesn't have to have any of that.
Space?
Yeah, whatever you want. That's fine, yeah. Cool, all right.
That's what we call our unit.
Bluetooth is enabled. Okay, so, all right, so that's done. Go back. Okay, so now we're done with that. Go back to the beginning. And time remaining. So if we were actually using something, using amps, which we're not, we have the battery switch off right now, a number would come up here and it would say you have, 6 days or 2 hours, depending on how much you're using. And that time remaining number is the time it takes to get to down to 10%. That was that discharge floor. All right, so we're done with this, and we're going to move on now to setting up the battery charger installation. So we're done with this, with the shunt and the new Dragonfly battery install. All right. Now, in the 2014s, we just have an old single single 30 amp panel here, which if you're doing a 3000 watt inverter upgrade, I would recommend you install the WFCO 8930 dual bus panel. But that's not what we're doing here. Okay, now this thing down here is what's called the converter battery charger. And in these older models, the 2015 and older, when you are plugged into shore power, this actually produces your 12 volt power. It converts 120 into 12 volt. It doesn't use your batteries. But now since Howard has lithium batteries, he doesn't really need that, because he has good battery power that he can actually use from his batteries all the time. He doesn't need this converter thing taking the place of batteries when he's plugged into shore power. The other thing that this does when he's plugged into shore power is it charges the batteries. So we're going to remove this, and what that consists of, it has 3 wires that hooks to 120. So you got neutral, black, and green for ground. That hooks to the 120 side, and then on the 12 volt side you have these 2 little wires, a red and a white, and they come up and they hook right here, positive and negative. So basically 5 wires to remove this, and then you remove these 2 screws down here, so you can actually pull it out. Give me this little shorty. And Howard said that we think this converter's actually gone bad, because Howard said on this trip, this little fan is only supposed to run when this needs cooling, but he said this is now running like 24/7, and that's not how it's supposed to work. So it's good that we're replacing this anyway, because you know, it's probably starting to fail. As I said, these are the 12 volt connections to this thing. Oh, and in terms of power, you don't want to be plugged into shore power, and you want your coach battery switch off when you do this job. I was thinking I could pop that panel. It's been a long time since I worked on one of these. I thought I could pop this out. There. Okay, and then like I said, on this side, Where's my other? Oh, here it is. Okay, so I want to take this green wire out of the ground. And this white wire. Now, one thing Leisure does that really isn't very good is see this mess that they've made connected to this breaker. This this converter actually has its own breaker. So I don't even know what this crazy situation is, but this wire, I mean, this really is a mess. I mean, that isn't the proper way to make a connection to that breaker. So, so we're done with this. We are going to be replacing that converter with a Blue Smart. This is waterproof, dustproof, IP67 rated battery charger, Victron. It has Bluetooth. This is a high quality battery charger. It's 25 amps, 92% high efficiency. And we're going to install that so when Howard is on shore power, he will get up to 25 amps of battery charging. And the good thing about this is it has what's called a rebulk feature. So what that means is as you're using your battery down, as soon as the draw on the battery exceeds the 25 amps, then it actually starts a new charging cycle. So it will always keep your lithium batteries charged while you're actually using them. So that's having a rebulk feature is a very good feature in a battery charger, because it basically maintains it while you're using it. This also has what's called a battery supply. So if you didn't want to use it as a battery charger, you could actually put it on power supply and it would provide 25 amps of power, 12 volt power. And you could use it as a power supply if you wanted to as well. But I think I think just using it for battery charging will be fine. So this is just going to fit in here like this, which is great because we have all these ventilation holes and in the back, so that will keep it plenty cool. We're going to run these 12 volt wires up and connect them into these terminals where the old converter battery charger was hooked to, and then we're going to cut this off and expose the wires so we can actually wire them in to the same points that the and on this 15 amp breaker that the other battery charger was connected to. So I will get my tools and I'll come back and we'll do all that. I'm putting ferrules on these on the ends of these wires, so I don't have to worry about little wire strands. Makes it much easier to connect into the terminals and tighten them up. There's my screwdriver. You're on. Okay, I ran, this is the positive and negative from the battery charger, which gets hooked to the positive and negative terminals of this fuse panel. And these two wires, well, this is ground, so it just goes to the chassis ground. That laser has a grounding bar behind this breaker box. But this red wire is connected to the coach battery switch, and then ultimately to the battery. So so I ran it through. There's a hole right here and behind this panel. So now when the battery charger works, it will send the battery voltage, charging voltage, through this positive wire that goes through the coach battery switch and then onto the battery. And it will charge the battery. Okay, so that's connected. Line this back up. These wires are a little stiff. Alright, so that's back in place. Okay, so, alright, so now those are the battery connection. Oh, I put 2 screws in the ends of this to mount it here inside. And so now we're going to run this wire up here and make these connections. So we just, let's see, let me make sure I got that. So that should be plenty of wire. And inside you see there are, where's my knife? Inside you'll see there's 3 colors of wire. Green, yellow, and white. There they are. Okay, so then I'm going to run this up through here. And that should give me plenty of wire. Okay, now I'm going to put, let me come back. Okay, I am putting ferrules, which are nice little straight connectors on the end, because I don't want to deal with all these strands. They make it much harder to...
Thank you, camera department.
They make it much harder to make your connections, because a battery box is used to, these breaker boxes are used to dealing with solid core wire, not stranded wire. So it's much easier if you add these little ferrules, and then you essentially have a solid core wire. And it's very easy to do. All right, so now we make our final connections. I will put the green back here where the other green wire was connected on the ground bar, because green is ground. And white goes to its neutral bar. So this is a great way for the older, using this Bluetooth Victron charger is a great way for the old to upgrade the older leisure travel vans to lithium, because you don't have to do an inverter change out to get a battery charger. You can just get rid of the converter battery charger that was only for lead acid batteries, and you no longer need them. And we're putting this on a 15 amp breaker, which it was otherwise you plugged it into a 15 amp residential outlet. So there we have it. A nice quality battery charger. Now when you go out and get a small zip. Okay, I'm zip tying this to the black wires just because I don't want to bounce it around or anything while okay. And in fact, I'll put one on this one too. All right, so that's good. Now we got a nice connection. Okay, so we now will, I'm not going to put on the panel until we can either plug in a shore power or start the generator. But we've got to test the battery. You know, we got to make sure the battery charger is working. So we'll come back when we get that set up. Okay, you can see the light is flashing. We have power. Now we called up our Victron Connect app, and now the battery charger is showing. Oh, now we got to go through the whole update process. Oh, we started the generator, by the way, because this battery charger will run on either shore power or generator power. And I turned the converter breaker, 15 amp breaker. We're going to have to change that on your panel. The converter, number two, you need to change your number 2 breaker converter to now be battery charger. Do you need a pen?
Okay.
Our firmware updated, hit continue. Okay, and here's our battery charger. Okay, so now we need to do the settings. I'm changing the pin code. setting this up is really simple. You just press lithium ion, and you have the choice of either making it a 10 amp battery charger or a 25 amp battery charger. So I'm going to leave it on 25 amps to start with. And really that's all. I mean, we're done. And then we hit the 3 dots, and we can change the name to the Nest Battery Charger. Oh, I think that's all the, yeah, that's all the, so it's going to be the Nest Battery Charger. Okay, so we're done with that. Bluetooth is enabled. Okay. So we're done with that. So we're bulk charging right now. Input voltage is 14.11. Since our batteries are already charged, it should go through about, I think maybe it's either 30 minutes or an hour of bulk charging. Well, it'll reduce itself as soon as it realizes that the batteries are, as soon as the batteries say, hey, I'm full, I don't want to take any more. And then it'll say 100%. Yeah, okay. So it will tell us, it'll catch up and figure out that it's charged, that the battery is fully charged. But then you've got, a history, you've got graphs, so you can see about, what's going on with the battery. So at any time, you can monitor your battery by just, calling it up on your Victron device, your Victron Connect app, and you can see what's going on with where you're at with the battery charger. So now we got a nice battery charger to go with our lithium setup, and we're done. We've done a nice lithium battery charging upgrade to an older 2015 leisure travel van, and this will work for, really, putting this battery charger in like this will work with any breaker boxes. So even Wonder models, whoever, you're mostly going to find the ones that have the single 30 amp box are the easiest ones to do it with. When you have a double, when Leisure started in 2016 with a dual breaker box, they still have the 1000 watt or 1200 watt Magnum inverters. You can do the very same thing and add this charger. You can add it either, behind the breaker box, or, in any location, even, close to the battery. You could put it inside your storage compartment, wherever you want to put it, because the Magnum, the 1000 watt and higher Magnum inverters, they have a built-in battery charger, but the battery charger is for lead acid batteries. And so the Magnum battery chargers don't even turn on unless the voltage is less than 12.9 volts. Well, a lithium battery, has to be, pretty well discharged to even get down to 12.9 volts. So, you don't have to disconnect the Magnum battery charger. You can just install this good Victron battery charger that has the lithium setting in it. You can install it anywhere. Just let the Magnum inverter, sit there, because mostly it is going to sit there, and if it does detect your battery voltage less than 12, it'll turn on, but it doesn't have the ability to charge a lithium battery. So it doesn't hurt anything if it does turn on, and then you have your good lithium battery charger. So this is an easy way to upgrade to a lithium battery charger for those that are interested. Okay, well, we're done, and I can put the panel back on, and now we got a complete lithium battery installation and battery charging setup.